Hello, commercial streams. Setting up for the Unplugged program 536. We've been taking a look at Plasma 6. And I got a surprising place adopting NixOS I want to talk about. So we got that and more coming up. Yeah. What do you think, Wes Payne? Should we mention the new OBS Studio 30 is out?
Oh, let's do it.
I was thinking we'd upgrade after the show.
Let's try it out.
Here's the big feature that I think's neat. I don't know how we're going to use this, but I think we could use this.
I like the idea of trying to figure out ways to use the features rather than the other way around. That's great.
They've added a work-in-progress WebRTC output source.
Oh, that does sound cool.
Doesn't that sound like it has potential?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay.
Especially for like a hosted OBS rig or something. I don't know.
So you can output your OBS, say, to like a call, like a video call?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess it uses this WIP thing, which is WebRTC HTTP Ingestion Protocol.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I thought it could already do that.
No, I don't think for output.
Something with a loopback device.
Intel QuickSync for H.264 and AV1 on Linux has been added as well. Also very good to see.
Nice.
Yes, it is.
Oh, application audio capture on macOS.
Hey-up! Hey-up! Not that that really matters, but that's always nice, right? Boy, it's good to be back in the studio. It's so good to be back in the studio. It's nice to have buttons.
Yeah, I figure like
computers.
if it works better on macOS, at least then, there's more folks that can use OBS, and then it's more net investment.
Can I take the other side on that?
Sure.
Screw those Mac users!
But it's so nice when you're like, well, okay, yeah, maybe I have this one Mac. I want to do something with OBS for work. I don't really want to buy the professional
true.
software that, production houses would be using on Mac.
Well, really, one of the nice things about them Macs is you could probably use it running the old OBS and it wouldn't run the fans like crazy. So you can have actually a quiet machine that you can put in your backpack. What a crazy idea.
So Mac has ARM support for OBS, but Linux doesn't?
Oof.
What? Are you sure?
with
Are you
that?
sure there is an ARM OBS?
Not positive, but I just looked for a flat pack of it because I want to put this on my Reaper machine.
I'll tell you what I'm seeing a lot more of, and it's a concerning trend. A lot of these Llama 2 based projects and these LLMs that you can self-host, almost all of them now just have a build for Macs. It's gross. Like, it used to be if you wanted to play with the toys, you had to use Linux. And now they're like, or here's a one-liner for your dirty Mac, which will use your neural processors. And by the way, when we did the benchmarks, it's like outperforming a lot of the other machines. I don't like seeing that.
Yeah.
I don't. The Mac's not supposed to be getting the new stuff.
Or can we at least get to a world where we can use those processors on Asahi?
Yeah, well, that'd be nice too. Although I feel like our dogs over at Intel are going to come through for us. I feel like, this time in a year, we're going to be having Intels with high efficiency cores and low efficiency cores and neural processors, and we'll be fine. Maybe. Otherwise,
Can you wait a year?
It's going to
That's
be
the
all
question.
locked up with NVIDIA. It's really NVIDIA's. See, that's the other nice thing about the neural processors, right? If you get a Mac, you just get the neural processors.
Yeah.
But on a PC, you got to get the NVIDIAs if you really want to play with the CUDAs, or maybe you do it on an AMD, but hey, okay, if you're going to take a minute, and God forbid you have an Intel ARC, then you're really going to be taking a minute. It's just...
I suppose that's the advantage when you're, it's not a whole architecture, but your version of the architecture comes up in an AI first world, right? You're like AI native.
Speaking of CUDA,
One last thought, though, but then Jeff, isn't it kind of funny that Apple had the foresight, the clear foresight, to build their architecture with neural processors before we'd even heard of OpenAI and ChatGPT? And clearly years before. And yet, they completely missed the large language model ChatGPT thing entirely. Like, they had the years of foresight to build that kind of technology into their CPUs and still fucking missed the whole thing. And now the reports are from Bloomberg, and Mark Gurman's a good source, they're scrambling internally. Scrambling.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose they had some of their own different applications, right? Like the
clearly.
the photo stuff and the.
But they were in the right ballpark. But all right, what were you going to say there, Jeff, about the CUDAs?
Oh, I was curious if the Westbot had a chance to get the CUDAs running on Nix on the not so Proxmox server.
Oh no! Unfortunately, we haven't touched that thing since.
Great.
You'll come back though, right?
Yeah, we got so many. You know us. We got 10 things going on at once.
So I added like the tensor stuff to Nix on that Bonobo, and it compiled for about 4 or 5 hours and then crashed.
Well, it's an old rig. What can I say?
It was software as a segfault thing. The hardware stood up.
Ooh, what is Taka saying here in Elements?
What do you got? What do you got?
NixOS, CUDA, Rock M, Llama works.
Oh, that's, I mean, we're going to find out. We do have it. We did put an NVIDIA in there.
Please tell us how. At least tell me how. Wes can figure it out. I can't.
We'll get there. CUDA. This whole opens, I don't know. I don't want to get into it. There's a lot there. I'll just save it for Coda Radio. Yeah. Yeah. I haven't got enough sleep, so I'll get cranky.
Look at you.
Learning, aren't I?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Figuring it out, Wes. Takes about 18 years, but I'm figuring it out.
Save it for Coder? Save it for Coder, a new term?
Well, I suppose.
Podcaster's dilemma.
Yeah, right.
That's what I call it.
True podcaster dilemma.
Somebody think of next week's episode.
I tried to get the Plasma 6 KDE Neon Unstable ISO to boot on my ThinkPad.
Yeah.
And it would not boot.
Really?
Even I put it in safe graphics mode, and I saw some error about importing previous sessions. Something failed, and then it just sits there and flashes and flashes and flashes.
That's what you want.
So I went and grabbed a slightly older version of the ISO, and it was the same exact thing.
Really?
And then I was reading Nate's blog, and he's like, you really won't notice anything different except for a slightly different breeze theme. I'm like, it's a lot of work for not really noticing anything different. So what I'll notice is things crash a bit more. All right, I get it. Yeah. I've been thinking about this, though. Maybe we should mention this in the show. They're going for a real smooth, light transition. So that way it's not a jarring, because 4 was rough. 3 to 4, I think, scarred the project. And I think from there they internalized, let's not make major changes on people. We can refine it during the point releases. Bad call, I say this time. I think it served the project well, but I think it's time to spice it up and build the hype and introduce something a little jazzy or a little new looking to really sell the 6. Because, Apple with iOS, I can't remember when they switched to the flat theme.
Oh, yeah, right. When was that?
It was rough. Mm-hmm. And they had a couple rough releases, and they went from a 90% upgrade rate, and it just slammed down to 60. And they just because they were the kings of the industry for getting users to adopt the new OS.
People actually upgraded because it worked and it didn't break your stuff and it was small. And
they're back up to 90%. They have gotten the number back up.
Wow.
Yeah. You know what the trick was, I think? In the point releases, they would do say iOS 17 or iOS 16. And then in 16.1, they cram in a whole bunch of new emojis and stuff and new sticker packs. And people want the new
they're making
shiny.
It worth the upgrade because there's some actual, it's not underpinnings.
Right. And by the 0.1 release, they've kind of worked things out a little bit. And so it's usually a pretty good upgrades experience. And so they managed to claw that all the way back up to that high upgrade rate again. And I think it's the new goodies that actually get people to do it when they're already a little apprehensive. But I look at that crazy new emoji pack.
So you think Plasma 6 emoji packs, that's what
they got to do. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Somebody get those AIs generating it.
Yeah, right? You can probably go build a GPT yourself now. Thanks, Sam. I was trying to summarize a page today, and I got I've exceeded my API quota thing, and I'm like, fuck this. I'm gonna set up my own self-hosted Llama 2. I'm not giving that guy a cent. Screw this, I said. That's what I said. I said, screw this. Screw this, I said. Screw it. Okay, I think we're just about ready, boys. How you feeling over there, Brantley? You got all your things in position?
Well, I want to hear stories about how your phones worked out.
Oh, yeah. Well, so, I was only going to take the Pyzel. But then I had that last minute, oh shit, it won't boot. I've lost my OS and my million sats. And then it booted, and I did a backup, and then I rebooted a whole bunch, and it was all fine. And I thought, well, I'm not feeling 100% about this. So I brought the iPhone, but the iPhone is on AT&T, and you don't just get service in El Salvador. You have to pay extra for it. So I thought, it's just a backup. So I threw it in the bag, and I ended up, what I would do is I would use the Pixel anytime I would go out and about because I had the service there and all the apps and everything like that. And it worked really well, flawlessly. And I bought, when I bought stuff, I bought it with the Pixel. But then when I was at home, I would always have to have the Android on the charger. And then I would use the iPhone as like my Wi-Fi phone and just for that kind of stuff because I'm really burning the battery down on that Pixel. It does help if I put it in low power mode. It does seem to stretch it a little bit more. But like during Adopting Bitcoin, during the conference, I didn't bring a laptop. It was what I was using to do all the introductions and whatnot. So I even had to have a charger there off stage. And so when I'd go off stage, I'd plug it in if I could, if I did need to look something up. I'd plug it in for a little bit just to kind of keep it topped off. And it worked because I brought an Anker high-speed USB-C PD charger.
Nice.
So
But that's a shitty lifestyle, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was always
Constantly
warm.
being tied to the wall.
Yeah.
Have you checked what was sucking your battery? Because there's been a specific app that's just been completely destroying my battery.
When I check,
You could say it. It's Tailscale.
Well,
Oh, no.
I love it.
No.
I just don't ever want to turn it off.
I leave Tailscale going all the time. No, when I check it, it's always the Android system and the cellular radio or something. It's always
Oh.
it's never any particular app. Simplex is in the top 5.
Tailscale's been sucking 60% of my usage. Yeah.
I don't think Tailscale even shows up in my top apps as battery usage.
I updated last night.
Are you
and it hasn't
routing
showed up
all your
today.
traffic through Tailscale?
No, not at all.
Are you sure?
Positive. Well, mostly positive, but all the exit nodes and everything are off. So, yeah.
I'll give you one guess what my top battery sucker is.
Oh, I already know.
Element?
Yeah.
Ding, 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 ding.
Which,
Every single time.
by the way,
I would have thought Nextcloud.
I used the hell out of on this trip. That's how Bitcoin Dad and Hadia and I coordinated everything that we were doing. All of it. We just had different rooms in Element. Using it all the time. Even in the airport, going through security. Okay, I'm through immigration. Okay, we're just about through. We're all doing it over Element. It's worked really good.
Not Simplex. I thought you might have
Well,
given that a real test.
We were going to. We set up a group and, we got everything all set up and on both phones and everything like that. And that was my plan is as soon as we had any issue with Element not loading or whatever because of bad connections or whatever, I just thought we'd use that, but we never needed to. And then we just had momentum on Element, so just stuck with that.
Fair enough.
Just stuck with that.
It's a nice place to be where we have reasonable options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I don't.
Do you use live tracking on Element at all?
No.
So there's a feature in Element that if you, say you and Hadia were headed someplace, or she's already there and she's waiting for you to get there.
Yeah.
You can go into Element and say share my live location.
Sweet.
And it'll literally put a pin on a map and show you.
Yeah, like a
Hadia
Telegram
where
does.
you are.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
I have not used that. I ended up, it's funny. The wife wanted me to also bring the iPhone so she could use Find My to find me in case we got separated. We never once had to look up at each other's location. That was never even a concern or an issue. It was not even a problem. So I'll tell you what was really nice was keeping care of Jupes remotely. So Jupes is in the roof shop while I'm in El Salvador. And Pasco, Washington was having a typical Pacific Northwest November, massive windstorms. They had wind up to 60 miles per hour a couple days ago, below freezing, 19 degrees and all of that. And so I was able to keep checking in on Jupes, making sure that her batteries were okay. And the nights they had her plugged in, I could run the heat and keep her at 60 degrees in there and then shut it off in the morning when I knew they'd be getting in and disconnect her and just kind of keep an eye on her. So that was really nice. The work is done.
Oh, even better.
I'm going to go tomorrow morning very, very early to go pick her up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm looking forward to seeing it, though.
That's exciting.
It is. They said it turned out good. We got some gutters installed, too, which feels very fancy. So, I think
Gutters
Yep, I think it's going to be really
on
good.
your mobile home.
Gutters. And new powerful fans, which we can reverse the direction of the air.
That's exciting.
Whoa, that is nice.
Yeah.
I keep thinking about trying to set up some
Is that
IoT like wind like
Yeah.
airflow sensors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Is that the Max fan?
Yeah, we had the fantastic fan, and then we had like this really crappy cheap, crappier than a cheap PC fan in the bathroom that's like the low rent.
Oh, that thing was terrible.
So we put identical Max Air fans in both vent spots, and they have hoods so they can be open in the rain while we're going down the road, so we can be venting while we're cooking, even if it's in a rainstorm. And in either one, you can reverse the push pull too. So in theory, you could really move a lot of air pretty quick through that whole rig, which I think is going to be great. Very excited about that. And it's like kind of cheap because they're already ripping it all out anyways. Sorry, what were you say, Colonel?
Yeah, I've got the Max Air, and I absolutely love it. They're the only thing that the Max fan can be a little finicky about is its voltage. So if it starts acting up, double check your voltage that's going to it. But otherwise, they're great.
I have pretty consistent voltage. I'm pretty consistent.
I'm guessing it's a DC fan then, right?
Yeah,
Installed too?
yeah. Say again, Colonel.
Did you get the wall control installed as well?
No, I was actually, Jeff and I were briefly kind of like looking at videos trying to figure out, could we hook up like a relay to this? Yeah. Maybe one day.
The Max fan, the Max fan actually has a whole computer control board. It's not standard open close contacts. So
dang.
at some point, whenever I get around to it, I do want to take and convert the wall panel, do a debug on the signals, and hook it up to like an ESP32.
Sure.
And integrate that with like Home Assistant. So if and when I do that, I'm sure I will share.
Please do. All right, gotta clean up my areas. We got work to do, boys.
Yeah,
Clean up
we
your
have
area.
a lot of work to do.
Brent, are you ready?
Isn't it nice not being in a closet, though?
So, did I tell you I broke that closet?
No.
No.
And man, was
You had more legroom in there than the airplane. though,
Hadia
right?
was pissed at me too. And like, it's not like I intentionally broke it, but like they had a clothes bar, and I thought, clothes bar is right about mouth height where I'm sitting, and I got a clamp for my microphone. I'll clamp mount it to that clothesline, and 'cause, it's a handheld microphone. It's not like it weighs more than like a clothes thing filled with shirts on hangers. So I clamp it on there. And I go to grab the microphone, and the entire effing thing collapses. Bolts shoot out of the walls at me. Ping! One hits me in the knee.
What?
And I'm like, I'm holding the whole clothesline down. I'm like, what the F just happened, right? So then I'm like trying to like detach the microphone and grab the clothesline and like pick it up and set it down. And then I just kind of like clamp the microphone onto like another part of the cabinetry. And then I
This
completely
was before we even recorded.
Yeah. And I completely forget about it because we got a show to do. And then Hadia walks in. She's like, what the hell happened in the closet? And then she's like, this is on my Airbnb account. I don't want a bad review. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. So she decides she's going to head out into San Salvador, and she's going to go to their local hardware store.
Yes.
And she's going to go get herself some epoxy. And she's going to go get herself some
Epoxy.
screws. And she's going to go get herself a mount, and she's going to fix this thing one way or another in a screwdriver. Yep. And she came back and fixed it up.
Oh, that's great.
She let the lady know, but I was already in trouble, too. Because it was a very modern design, and they had these vases, these beautiful vases that come up to about your arse.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
That are filled with white rocks and plants and stuff.
Yeah.
And there was two big sliding glass doors to go out onto the balcony and look at the city. And one of these vases was kind of in front of the door. And I thought, oh, we're going to knock that thing over. So I should do the right thing and move it out of the way. So, me, not really thinking about it. I walk over and I put my hands on kind of like midway down the vase. And I have my thumb, it's kind of like my thumb's up towards the top of the vase. My fingers are down towards the bottom of the vase. And I lift it up. As soon as I lift it off the ground, it explodes into pieces. All over my hand. Rips my thumb up. Rips my thumb up.
You're just cursed. What's happening?
Shards of glass everywhere. Glass goes everywhere. We were cleaning up glass the entire day, still finding glass pieces. And it takes this huge chunk all the way down the side of the vase out, you know. So I was already in trouble before I broke the closet. And I can't really just epoxy that back together, so.
Sounds like they just had this place booby trapped for y'all.
Yeah, I didn't even think, like, it was, looking at it, kind of thinner glass than maybe you'd find in a vase here in the States. It might have been a more budget purchase for the aesthetics and not really meant for a lived-in space. You know, it's maybe more something you use for staging, not something you'd actually use for living in.
So what did you do with all the rocks?
Well, it didn't crack all the way. It was just it took like a large triangular shape out of the side where one of my hands was. And so the rocks stayed in, thankfully.
Something to remember you by.
I'm amazed that everywhere where my right hand was touching broke away. But the only part that got cut was my thumb, which was near the very top rim, because my hands were kind of like down and I was kind of lifting. And it just got which is almost healed up now. But
so you just wrap the thing with like plastic wrap and everything's good?
Yeah, and wrap my thumb.
I think maybe they knew about that and, they saw that it was in front of the door too. They just didn't want to take the risk of moving it. I'm not going to touch that thing.
Yeah, really, no kidding. I learned my lesson on that one. All right, Brantley, are you ready to record over there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1, record. Hello, Space Drew.
Hello.
Hello, Drew.
Do you have a fourth backup this week?
I should, right?
I crave ZFS.
Yeah.
Got to keep the chief happy.
All right, 4 count. When Brent is done drinking in. How do we do this again? 1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
That was
Back in this.
That kind of sucked. But it's all right.
Are some of those Europeans coming in before I do?
Drew's a good lad.
It's embarrassing.
Anything else?
Silence?
Yeah, we could. Starting now. Yeah, good enough.
I get all self-conscious
OBS
during the
machine?
silence.
Yeah, what?
Is that the OBS machine? Just the loudest thing on our side?
I think so, yeah. It's either that or Airmaster. But I think it's the OBS machine. It's just kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
Blame Jeff. He didn't clean it.
No, wait, hold on a second. Those computers should be much quieter than what I got.
It's a market opportunity for System 76 because if they made like some sort of silencing box I could put over that thing, with their logo on it, I'll put it right over it.
Yeah.
Called the hot box. All right, let's see if we can make something out of this, or you could use that as the pre-show, Drew. You decide. You decide. What's the name of this? Vega. They're calling it Vega. Amazon plans to make their own Linux-based OS to replace Android.
Yeah, not just replace it, but get away from the fact that they're struggling with the bloat of Android. I like that framing.
I mean, part of me wants to see it because the Fire tablets, I've got a few of them. They're okay, especially if you get some of the newer ones. But man, Android does feel like a pig on there.
I think it's starting with the TVs.
No. We've already got WebOS. Just use WebOS.
I mean, it's in that flavor, maybe not actually, but in the name because it's powered by React Native. So, JavaScript developers can finally reach the TV.
Oh, God. Hello, friends, and welcome back to your weekly Linux talk show. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
And my name is Brent.
Hello, gents. Coming up on the show today, we're going to look into the brief future of desktop Linux and take a little snapshot of how Plasma 6 is coming along and share you some of the interesting bits that are coming up that we're excited about. And then, the very surprising place that's seen some NixOS adoption. I was shocked I had a great opportunity to chat with a few folks, and I'll share that experience with you on the show today. So before we go any further, let's say good morning to our friends over at Tailscale. Tailscale is a mesh VPN protected by WireGuard. WireGuard. We love it. It's going to change your networking game. I sync all of my private data over Tailscale now. Nothing goes over the public internet. It's like I've built my own decentralized web on my own little LAN.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. You
so
got
wonderful.
a lot harder to hack after that.
Yeah, sorry about that. So go say good morning and try it for free on 100 devices while you support the show. Go to tailscale.com/Linux Unplugged. And it is fantastic to welcome back the Mumble Room. Time-appropriate greetings, Virtual Lug.
Hello.
Hello, guys.
Hello, Chris. Hi, Wes.
Hello.
Hi, Brent.
Hello. Wow. Great showing. Huge group up in the quiet listening, too. Look at that.
Yeah, hands.
Aha. Aha. Oh, yeah. We're back in the studio. I'm really feeling the vibe right now. It is so nice to be back and just have like buttons and like levers and sliders and stuff. Oh,
And so many screens.
so many screens. The Tuxies are going right now. I don't know much. I don't have to say it over and over again. I just want you to go vote, so I'm saying it now. I should come up with a better, more motivational plug, but we want this to represent the best opinion and the largest cross-section of our audience as possible. That only works if you go vote.
Yeah, the least input we have on it, the better.
Tuxies.party for that.
Hey, have we this year described what the Tuxies are? I feel like we've just been referring to them as just the Tuxies.
Right.
Go vote and find out.
Yeah, you do get a sense if you go look at it. It does answer that in a way, because people, with the context of being what it is and all. But you can think of it as the premier awards show for our favorite voted by our audience open source projects for the year. We talk a lot of things, a lot of stuff on this show. But which ones really stood out and made a year out of it, that's for the audience to decide. And then, once a year, annually, we hold the Tuxies. It's a special edition of the show, and we announce the winners. And something kind of special. After you go vote, the show mascot, the Golden Dragon, has made a I voted in the Tuxies sticker.
Wait, what?
Yep, for $5 on his website. The profits go to the Golden Dragon, but he's a great community member, and he's going to kick us back a little bit in the boost. So we'll get a cut of the action. I like this method, right? Because we don't have time to do this. He's great with this stuff, and he'll kick a little value back to the show if you pick one up. So we'll put a link to the I voted in the 2023 Tuxies with, look at what a dapper.
This is impressive.
That's a dapper tux on that.
I want that suit.
I wish I looked that good,
I think you can pull it off.
Yeah, maybe with a top hat. Maybe. We'll put a link to the I voted in the 2023 Tuxies sticker if you want to grab yourself one. It could be a fun way to, make something more out of this, I guess. Okay, let's talk a little news. There is some things going on this week that we wanted to have a chance to chat with y'all about. And I think the thing to start with this week is the really big news for the Gnome Foundation. The Gnome Desktop has been recognized as a public interest infrastructure project. That means they have qualified for about €1 million in funding from the Sovereign Tech Fund. That will go in directly to the project to fund certain development and things like that. We can get into that in a moment, but just at a high level, what an absolute fantastic opportunity for the Gnome project, right?
I mean, yeah, nice recognition and a great investment to keep up all the great stuff they are already doing. It's interesting I guess we'll dive into some of the stuff that they're specifically targeting, but I feel like we haven't seen just a nice positive story like this for maybe too long. So let's just be happy.
Well, and this is a little... go ahead, Brent.
I was going to ask the hard questions. Like, I noticed some people were saying, hey, well, what about like the European desktop, KDE? Why aren't they getting these kind of things? But maybe we'll just stay on the happy side and ignore those questions.
It's fair. I looked a little bit. I think anybody could probably do a little bit more research and learn more, but I looked a little bit into the Sovereign Tech Fund. They started in October of 2022. They've been financed by the German Federal Ministry. They've been financed by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action. They're incubated at something called Springed GmbH, so it kind of gives you an idea of where they're based out of. They have about 11.5 million euros available for operational funding in 2023. It's run by 2 individuals, although I think the decision process is done by a committee. And so it's primarily operating under a grant from the German government. Then they kind of look at different open source projects that they want to spend money with. There are some on there that you would recognize. You see that list of projects they're supporting? If you scroll down on their main website, which we'll link in the show notes.
Oh, yeah, here it is. Hey, look at that curl. Love to see that. WireGuard. OpenSSH. Yeah, a lot of good stuff. Yocto.
Yeah. So they've been spreading the funding around. I would imagine, though, so you got a lot of projects you want to support. You got 11 million euros to work with. Maybe you only do one desktop project. Now, in the past,
I suppose we don't even know if KDE applied necessarily, right? You probably have to know this exists as an option and applied and whatever else.
and I'm pretty pleased to see where the money's actually going. In the past, you'd see a scenario where, maybe Gnome would have 700,000 going in and 400,000 or more of it would be going towards outreach and social projects, which are good, but not always directly development related. And in this case, these investments actually all seem to be pretty much directly development related. Improving the current state of accessibility. That is clearly going to require a lot of code. New prototype of accessibility stack as well.
Yeah, I think the combination there, the investment, and I mean, we've already kind of it comes up a lot that at least on the Linux desktop, Gnome's kind of sometimes your best bet for some of those accessibility features. So I just probably just keep doubling down on that investment already.
Yeah, and then looks like some options and configuration ability for home encryption. Modernizing GNOME secret storage, that also seems like a really good thing.
I like the expand and broaden free desktop API, so that at least maybe somewhat appeases Brent if we get some investment in stuff that isn't just for GNOME. Assuming that other desktops implement whatever things they improve, of course. But, the option is there.
Yeah. At least will be a free desktop API in standard. I think that's probably a good thing. Here's my kind of steelman side of this. The negative side of this so I think maybe it's not so much that one project is getting money and another project isn't, because that does just kind of happen from time to time. I think it perpetuates a problem that is just going to get worse over time. By not solving this problem now, we are going to have a real doozy one day. And this may not really be an issue, but I believe as time goes on, the probability of a lot of the Western countries having a significant recession increases. Germany just recently announced they are officially in a recession. Germany is the economic powerhouse of the European Union, and now they are in recession. And Germany is the government that is funding the Sovereign Tech Fund. If Western governments slide into recession, and they may or may not, but the probability is increasing, funding like this starts to dry up. They're not just going to have nearly 12 million euros to throw around. These types of projects are going to get starved. So we'll either see a reduction or an elimination in these funding programs, which means a reduction or elimination in free software funding. And I maintain that until we have free software primarily funded by the individual and the direct consumer of the software, and as long as we rely on large corporations and large governments to fund this software development, then we are essentially relying on subsidized free software. And as long as we are relying on subsidized free software, it will eventually come to an end, because everything that is subsidized will eventually come to an end. That is the economics of the situation. And if we proceed to slide into recession, we will likely have that very situation materialize. And I feel like we're still hooked on the good stuff. Like, so many people don't see this, yet they clearly will criticize Mozilla for being dependent on Google for their funding. And yet we don't see the exact situation that is playing across so much of free software right now. We're blind to it, even though it is exactly the Mozilla-Google situation. And until we solve that problem, we are going to pay greatly one day, because if most of the Western economies go into recession, then most of the Western governments are going to not be able to fund this kind of stuff all around the same time. And at the exact same time, we've also seen a dramatic reduction in sponsorships of free software and advertising-based free software, and all advertising in general. I feel like a real problem is brewing here. And while I'm really glad that they got this funding, I think the long-term problem here isn't solved. And I don't want them not to get the money. Of course, I'm glad, but I wish the Linux community could pull their head out of their ass and realize what a great free ride they've gotten and the privilege they have for not having to think about the economics of software development. They have been extremely privileged, and that has blinded them to a problem that we have been discussing since the very beginning of Linux Action Show and is only getting worse. And nobody sees it. And it drives me crazy. And I know that it is also at the same time a very positive story, so I don't want to be such a downer about it, but my God, have we got to solve this problem.
Isn't that aren't they kind of separate in a way? I mean, I think you're just arguing don't be reliant on this. Like, you're going to need that funding.
And I
think the
suspect
positive side is we should be doing this. And while our governments have money, I like the idea that they should be some of the funders of this, because it is a common economic, it is the kind of thing that, we can easily allocate resources for as a collective.
I think too, it's like, I feel like the probability of this going away is getting higher. I'm not saying the sky's falling, but looking at this, if the economic powerhouse of the European Union has officially entered recession, then how likely is it that the other economies are also going to go into recession? If you have multiple recessions happening at the same time, it's extremely likely that they're going to cut funding extraneous projects like this. Or at least if they want to be fiscally responsible, they should. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I really feel like the community needs to have a very honest conversation that developers have got to eat. And it's like, yeah, we're not solving that still. And when we do see funding, it's like the only funding we're seeing is like this stuff. And I'm grateful for it. I would like to have both. I wouldn't want this to go away.
Yeah.
I would like to have this and for the actual projects to be funded by the users that are using the projects. Right? Like that would be, in my preference, would be a larger source of funding, would be the users.
Yeah, a stable backdrop.
But this doesn't, this kind of stuff doesn't go away.
Yeah, well, right. And like you're saying, right, I mean, like in terms of planning, that's kind of how you'd want to do it anyway, because you don't know, like, I've got this grant for this time, I can aim it at these specific projects, but that doesn't pay the like every month bills for the in perpetuity.
Yeah, you don't know what it means for 2024, you don't, or 2025, however the funding works out. But at the same time, at least you got a year or something, right? Like that's huge at the same time. So it's really good to see. And I think looking at the projects that the Sovereign Tech Fund has chosen to support, they seem like really great projects. Like you mentioned, Curl and WireGuard are on the list, for God's sake.
Yeah. I think also, they call out some folks here at the bottom in the announcement, Tobias Bernard and Sonny Piers for organizing and managing this. And I imagine there's a fair amount, like, any of this kind of stuff. There's also all the overhead that goes with like applying for these things, receiving them, complying, whatever like reports and updates need to go out as, as part of the process. All of which aren't necessarily bad in terms of transparency and oversight. But if you just have, like you're saying, sort of a better backdrop of funding from the users, maybe that's stuff that, that kind of stuff can be optimized away, or at least somewhat.
I'm curious how you feel the foundations fit into this picture, Chris, because, aren't places like the Linux Foundation, or at least Free Software Foundation, like they're trying to increase the longevity of free and open source software development? Are they succeeding? Are they just failing? Is it like a more complex?
As time goes on, I feel like what the Linux Foundation is doing is consolidating commercial control and picking winners and losers in free software. I mean, if you just look at the results, it definitely have been projects that get funding, but then we could do a story once a month at least about a developer who burns out because their project, even though millions of users were using it as some sort of dependency, never got any support. Because the Linux Foundation simply cannot scale to that level. Because it can only be a constrained set of people that are picking and choosing what gets financing in a system like that, there's only going to be so many projects in their purview, and there's only going to be so much budget. And if you look at the actual money they spend on free software in Linux, it's like 3% of their budget. So it just isn't going to work at the level we need it to work now when you think of all of the software that's on your system. I'm not saying every single piece of that should make somebody's not going to make a full-time living, but there has to be some sort of exchange of value there to keep these people going, to keep the software funded, to keep that whole ecosystem robust enough where people are willing to constantly deal with the changing nature of Linux and free software in general. I mean, I feel like the history of what we see with software development just makes this painfully obvious what I'm saying. It's just painfully obvious. And I think the reason why I'm a little extra worked up about it right now is because the probability of economic headwinds is exponentially growing over the last just couple of weeks. Like, if you're watching the larger macro picture, the situation in the Western governments fiscally has gotten a lot worse in just the last couple of weeks. So the probability is increasing, so my concern is increasing.
I wonder if this will just unfortunately have to be something where, as that comes to pass, if it does, do Linux desktop users just need to see the worst, I'm not seeing the feature improvements I used to be seeing. I'm not,
I think maybe too there's a free software open source mindset shift that needs to take place. One of the reasons I went to adopting Bitcoin this year is because Bitcoin is free software. But yet, I think over the years, Linux users have developed tunnel vision as to what we kind of think of free software and open source. I think it's mostly we think of Linux and then the ancillary projects around it that we run on our Linux boxes. Mm-hmm. And then things outside of that world don't really get the same kind of interest or attention or care or consideration, even if they are actually free software. And I think you can see this with some of the large language model development we're seeing and the complete blind spot that so many Linux users have. You can see it with the different cryptocurrency developments and how so many Linux users have no idea what's going on there, even though this has been one of the most significant developments in the last 13 years of technology. And you can see it over and over again in those communities as well. The people that are deep into those other communities don't actually see Linux as really sort of the same thing. Mm-hmm. And I think until we have a mindset that we have a wider encompassing mindset of what is free software, we're going to have a really hard time funding it. I think it's like multiple problems, right? It's like privilege of never really having to care how Linux was funded or how the software got on your computer. You just had the privilege of getting the ISO. I mean, that's massive, right? If you even had to pay $100 to get that ISO, you'd be thinking a lot more about where that software comes from and how it's made. And then I think we've had the privilege of, at least in the last decade or so, we have existed in an era of very large corporations spending money to have their backs scratched and resulting in code that we all get to use. And we've had governments, especially in the West, that have been printing money. And so they can fund any little political pet project that comes up with zero consequence because they have unlimited cash. And so they have been able to fund all kinds of things that wouldn't normally get funding. And all of that's coming to a slowdown at the same time. So it just feels like a real transition we're going through. And how do we maintain the quality of software when even companies like Red Hat are de-investing in projects? Like the end of the evolution back end for the Gnome desktop is going to have ramifications for anyone that uses the Gnome online accounts feature.
I think the other component here is over time, right? Like it's kind of different than some of the early days where like when Linux was just a sort of newer thing, maybe you're running on the side, you wouldn't trust it in production just yet. Now we're really reliant on a lot of this open source software.
That's what I'm feeling.
In governments, in businesses, and a lot of our personal lives, at least.
I'm feeling that right now.
Yeah.
Linode.com/unplugged, y'all. Go over there, support the show, give them a little Sunday how you doing. Linode.com/unplugged.
Now, KDE is making a splash in the news this week, several splashes, but one of the ones that I think I'm most excited about is KDE 6. They're calling it a mega release. And I guess the alpha is out this week. So the alpha is out, the latest. Yeah. It has the latest version of Qt, which is Qt 6, which is the framework that Plasma's built on. Now, you gents have lived through mega releases before. I have not. So this is kind of new and exciting for me. I wrote down some notes here, but you'll correct me, right? So Plasma 6, as I mentioned, so I guess it'll feature Qt 6.6. And the coming with that is a few other KDE sort of umbrellas. So Gear 6.0 and the frameworks as well. And so they're calling it a mega release because all of these things will release at the very same time. And in theory, there's a lot of development work to move to that new framework.
Yeah, I mean,
now
Qt 6 came out, just for context, in 2020, December 2020.
Okay.
Major overhaul, moved to a new C++ minimum version. They switched to the CMake build system, new graphics architecture, a bunch of modules emitted. Like there was a lot of changes, which I think is why we're like, Qt 6 is at the 0.6 release. And we're just getting the Plasma version. And I think that maybe underscores some of the stuff we're going to get into about what you will and won't see that's changed, because just getting what was working with 5 working on 6 is a lot of work by itself.
That is the work.
Yeah.
So that's what we got to appreciate about Plasma 6 is what these two just described is the work of Plasma 6. So you're not going to install Plasma 6 one day and be like, holy crap, everything's different. Look at this new menu. Look at this new widget over here. That's not going to be Plasma 6. I mean, those things may roll out over the lifetime of Plasma 6, but yeah, and we knew when Qt 6 came out, we knew that was going to be a massive amount of work. And I think that's why it's been since 2020, and we're only really kind of seeing us get there now. The actual achievement will be to kind of keep the existing experience functional.
Right. Do you kind of mostly not notice except for the good bits that have changed?
Yeah. Now,
If you don't notice, I feel like it's a success, right?
now that said, I think you will see a little bit of improvement with the Breeze theme. They have worked that in. And I kind of wish there was something kind of whiz-bangy because that's always what gets users to really adopt. Maybe you do that in Plasma 6.1 when you've kind of nailed things down. And then you introduce something kind of whiz-bang new looking. And that really, then all the distros move over or something like that, right?
And you could see it, especially if the sort of initial release is, hey, we got it all working. And then after that, you can start taking advantage of some of the new things that the updated framework allows you to do.
So we have some milestones coming up.
Yeah, the beta releases as well. You're saying there's no whiz-bang features, but I feel like there's still an opportunity. So there are a couple betas. I guess the first beta, we're in alpha right now. So if you want to play with it, things are going to break. That's just how it goes. But if you want to wait just, a couple weeks for maybe a more stable experience, the end of November, we'll see the very first beta release. And there will be a second one closer to Christmas. So just in time for, I don't know, maybe you got time off or that's really what you want for Christmas. If you're wondering about the final release, Plasma 6 is scheduled for February 28th of next year. So it's going to be a while. There's a lot of work to do still, I would imagine, but a lot of bugs for Brent to find. So, but if you're interested, I would say go out and grab it. You can get it, KD Neon's Unstable branch. You can play with it right now. And yeah, we did. And I think it's true. It just kind of works from what I noticed. And there's a few little tiny differences, but nothing like huge and major, which I think is a good thing, right? But I'm hoping they will find a little feature or two to throw into these betas. We'll see. And I'm sure we'll report on that as well.
As a Plasma connoisseur, Brent, what are you looking forward to in Plasma 6?
Oh, that's... I probably should have thought of that question and seen it coming. I don't think I've had any really strong desires for features that I've been sorely lacking. I know for you, Chris, given the amount of extensions that you're installing on Gnome, often it's nice to see those things come natively, which you've seen in the last couple of weeks. But I think you might have stumped me on this one. Oh, I have one.
Okay.
So I noticed that one of the new features that are already out there is in KRunner. You can reorganize the search results.
Oh.
So whenever you type like for a file or something, maybe you want the files to always show up at the top. Again,
Yeah.
it's a small thing, but it's like a life improvement, right?
Yeah.
Especially because, KRunner is pretty darn handy. And I imagine there's quite a few sort of KRunner power users out there who would appreciate just that kind of detail.
A couple things I'm looking forward to. We've mentioned recently that it's going to default to Wayland. I think that's just a good milestone. HDR capable gaming is going to be there. That's going to be just so awesome to see. All right, we have to pause. Levi!
Hey, why do I always get left out? That's not fair.
Hello, buddy. Dog. How are you?
You mean you don't have cats on your keyboards right now, Brent?
They're not allowed in the room while I record for those very reasons.
Let's take that off. Yeah. Gotta give Levi this credit.
I have a bird right next to me, and if it finds that I'm talking too much and it doesn't get any attention, it starts screaming for attention.
Grandpa, were you a good boy for Christmas?
It's like a partner, right? I have kids like that.
Ooh.
I bet you were a good boy. Yeah, you were a good boy. Okay.
Don't say that too loud.
I told everybody Levi would be a good boy.
I live alone. It's a privilege.
Make a single.
It is a privilege. You're right.
Levi's back. He was staying with Grandpa, so that's good to see him.
Did you say hi to him for me as well?
Levi, Jeff says hi. Don't leave your bra in here, Levi. He's a good boy. Yeah.
All right, now we can continue. We have a
All is
podcast
well.
dog.
And I will continue with one other observation. And then I think the other thing that I'm probably the most looking forward to would be just the work that's going into the settings panel to kind of rework it a little bit. The printer area has gotten some love. And I guess I need to play with this. Everything they write is now one dialogue in there. So they've changed the way it kind of I don't know. I got to play with the layout. But it looks like they're improving that. And then last but not least, the situation with flat packs is a little better in Plasma 6 too. So I kind of been relying more and more on flat packs, so that'll be nice to see when we get there.
Yeah, I wanted to play with that. Unfortunately, Discover crashes when I try to launch it, at least in the test system I got installed.
I'll give it time.
I do like the new task switcher. That's pretty nice. Although one of the entries I see is a Wayland to X recording bridge. I don't know quite what that's about. It doesn't actually pop up anything when I select it. So you can tell it's definitely an alpha, but I've been impressed by how much sort of has remained the same.
Yeah. Yeah, that just like getting to that bar.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the Breeze update, you wouldn't really notice a difference when you just load it. It's kind of wild.
I guess I have one wish, and there's something I'm kind of worried about. I want to see it land in the LTS coming up of Kubuntu 2404, but it feels like that date we saw, February 28th, and I guess the Ubuntu feature freezes are usually around that time, so I worry maybe Plasma 6 won't land in that LTS, and then it'll be a full, 2 years before that lands in there? That gets me worried.
Yeah, but see, that kind of goes like with what I was saying. I agree, but these moments have definitely happened before in Plasma past. And ultimately, what you really want is for people to have a really solid experience with one of the most commonly recommended Plasma distros. So Kubuntu kind of plays an important role, I think, in the Plasma desktop ecosystem. And what they could do is ship 5.27 dot whatever it is at that point, which is an LTS release and very solid right now. And they could ship a very, very solid, but still very good version of Plasma on top of an Ubuntu LTS, which is also, in theory, going to be extremely stable and reliable. And the combination makes for such a solid, safe recommendation to new Plasma users that I think the downside of not getting Plasma 6 is worth it, because in the next LTS cycle or in one of the interim releases, they could switch to Plasma 6 and work it out before the LTS release, and then maybe even ship Plasma 6.1 in that next LTS release, right? So you have those interim releases after this really solid LTS is out, which can be made available for 5 years, right? And then in that 5-year window, in the interim releases, you hash out the migration to 6, and then ideally, if you had Chris's wish list, with the next LTS 6.1 Plasma desktop ships on Kubuntu, and it's yet another really solid recommendation, and it's going to be a great experience because they've had those interim releases to work it out.
Yeah, plus, Brent, you can just run Neon, right?
Well, Chris, actually, that's a really good point. I think I was looking at this as too narrow a time focus, because from what I looked at, Plasma 5 came out in 2014 of July. So it's been around a while. So I'm thinking, it's, they're going to miss it by a month, the release deadline. But there are many LTSs to come in 6's life. And, but I wanted to find out from you guys, maybe you lived through the transition from 4 to 5, and I want to know how that went. Do you remember what it was like?
That was surprisingly, I think, pretty good. The rough one was 3 to 4. I think the project internalized some scars with the 3 to 4 transition. And it was a new version of Qt and all of that. And a lot of things were very unstable. So when 5 came, I think they were very intentional. So when it was time for version 5 of Plasma, I feel like the project was a lot more intentional about making it a smooth transition. And that same lesson learned from 4 to 5 is what's guided the 5 to 6 transition we're seeing now. All right. Well then, collide.com/unplugged. Go over there and watch the demo, support the show, and maybe Collide could save you some time and therefore some stress at collide.com/unplugged. All right, as a dad of 3, I feel like I can safely make fun about this, but let me ask you two, what would you rather have if you could pick? Would you rather have, on your flight back from El Salvador, a toddler that's COVID coughing in the seat in front of you, with every single breath. The poor thing. It was a sick kid. Or a screaming baby in the seat in front of you that just is not having it and just cannot be comforted. Which would you prefer?
I feel like maybe you had both.
Yeah, not a lot of good options there. I guess I'll go with option B just because I don't want to get sick.
Yeah.
But it also sounds miserable.
What about you, Brent?
Yeah, both sound awful for the child. But I'm going to choose B as well because I feel like it's short-term consequences versus potential long-term consequences for everybody.
Yeah, I definitely indeed had both. That was quite we had 2 flights, so I had an opportunity to enjoy both. I will
argue, I think it's better than a young toddler behind you kicking your seat the whole flight.
Yeah, maybe.
Because at least you can like plug your ears with multiple things, right?
That's true. I've been there though. I know how it feels for the parents. Oh man, and I almost got up and fought for the parent just at a brief moment. When we landed in SeaTac, we had to like hang out on the tarmac for a while. And
that's the worst.
They want you to stay in your seat and they want you to stay buckled. And the only thing that would kind of chill this baby out would be if dad or mom could walk and bounce it a little bit. And so we got about a 15-minute window where we're just hanging on the tarmac. And so the dad gets up and starts doing the thing. And the stewardess comes up and just with like no empathy tells him, "Sir, when we are on the ground, before we reach the gate, you will be in your seat." And I almost got like, he has been on this flight trying to get this poor kid to stop crying this entire time. The only thing and we're not moving.
Yeah.
And if we do move, it's not like the pilot like just slams the thing into like full throttle and we all get thrown back, right? Like, and it's not like there's turbulence on the ground. So really, this rule is so important that this poor suffering dad and child can't just sit here and bounce lightly. And it's not like he's like pacing. He's just kind of like up, in his spot. Mm-hmm. Poor dad. Anyways, I had a really interesting experience while in El Salvador. I realized when I started feeling better, like, I got to figure out the Linux scene here.
Yeah.
I got to figure out what's going on because I want to know, from like, is there any Linux at all? Because I hadn't seen anything, but there's not a lot of technology to be seen. But I did end up bumping into 2 different groups that were actually both using NixOS in San Salvador, the capital of El Salvador. One individual that I spoke to, Rene Salamanca, was the GOAT of our conference. He really ran the AV and kept the conference in our track just really, really, really going smooth and just constantly like anticipating problems and solving them before they came up. And he was there early and there late to make sure that everybody was ready to go. So like we showed up late, well, not late, but we showed up on time and the first speaker showed up really early and Rene was already there and had them all taken care of.
That's great.
Which, by the way, he mentioned that he is available as a virtual assistant if anybody wants to hire him. So if you want somebody in El Salvador who speaks English and is a hard worker, let me know and I'll put you in contact with him and I have his resume. But I talked to him about a project that he and his buddy are working on. I think I told you guys a little bit about it, but it's this work platform they're building, and the back end all runs on NixOS. And I asked why Nix? Why did you guys pick NixOS? And he put me in touch with an individual named Jay, who's also been working on projects with a group of students, and they're all using NixOS. And so it's kind of become like this like they're all recommending Nix to each other.
Yeah, you're getting to build in a little pool of Nix users and folks that can support other people learning and using Nix.
I'm like, where does this come from? So I was talking to Jay because it was really his students that got the ball rolling, and he says they started with Debian.
Okay, so that makes sense, right? That's how a lot of stuff goes.
And they liked it, and they used that for a while, but they kept looking for ways to make the system more reproducible so they could do quick recovery or they could just give somebody something to run and they would have a complete ready-to-go system. Because they wanted to build little systems that could work at small businesses as like maybe a Bitcoin node so they could run their own node for the business or like a little small business server or a desktop because they really don't have anything.
Yeah.
Some of them have phones, but they went from no technology to cell phones, and now they're getting Nix. And it's this group of students, as part of their classwork, goes out and does these deployments for businesses using like rebuilt computers.
Oh, neat.
And so they wanted a way to be able to recover business systems really quickly. So like a student could go out who was like new in the program and could just get the system up and running really quick. And so they, over their own little course of discovery, found the Nix Bitcoin project for the node aspect of what they wanted to do. Then from that, figured out what Nix was, and now are using Nix for all of this, for the desktops they're doing, for the nodes they're doing, for the little business servers that they're building.
Wow.
And Jay said, when I was talking to him, he's like, yeah, I was pretty skeptical at first, because
what is this weird niche distro?
that's what he said. He's first like, I was shocked when I looked it up. It's like, you've been around for 12 years? It's like, I'd never heard of this. But he said the results were clear. The students liked it. And so they've been going out and deploying it. So then they kind of, through that network, have been recommending it to other people. So that's how Renee found out about it. And the project they're building for that work platform is using Nix. And it really all kind of goes back to the Nix Bitcoin project, because Johannes Nick was at the very first Adopting Bitcoin conference, and he's an influential Bitcoiner, and he created the Nix Bitcoin project. And he did a good job early on promoting it in El Salvador, the talks and helped set it up for people. And I'll put a link to one of his talks in there. And as a result, it really just kind of catched on. Like, they needed this, they were looking for this solution. Mm-hmm. And it just sort of fit. And I just try to put yourself in my shoes. Try to put yourself in my shoes. I'm there in El Salvador. It's not a very advanced country in a lot of ways. You don't see very much technology. You see mobile phones. That's it. And when I asked Renee, do you know anybody using Linux? And at first I thought, is he going to even know what I'm talking about? And then I was like, no, he's just going to tell me Windows. And when he said yes, and then and imagine when I asked the distro and he said NixOS.
That's just wild.
Imagine that. And the Bitcoin dad and I were standing there, he was with me, and he was like, no way. Like, we're just like, that's incredible. Then working it back, it makes sense, but it took me a minute.
I was going to give you a hard time for ruining our No Nix November, but it's kind of not your fault. You didn't expect this, right?
Oh, did we officially do that? Okay, starting now.
Well, I don't know if we did officially.
Yeah, I don't think we did, but maybe, okay.
I was going to say I would be more shocked if Nix, part of it I'm sure is a little bit of the fact that we keep looking for it now, but like Nix just keeps popping up over and over in all kinds of places.
It is, like, it's been the year of Nix.
Ask not what your podcast can boost for you, but what you can boost for your podcast.
Thank you so much, everybody who takes a minute to support the show with a boost. Each individual production can be supported by using a new podcast app and boosting in. And Deleted is our baller this week with a big old boost, 98,303 sats. Now, he's encouraging me to check exactly which processor I have here, because he says the original Core Duo was a 32-bit processor. I think mine's the Quad, but I will try to double check that, because if I already have a 32-bit CPU here, I'm good to go.
Chances are high, I think.
Yeah. Additionally, says for the 32-bit challenge, I don't consider spinning Rust a requirement. SSDs were available, although the prices were ridiculous. If you can put a SATA SSD into whatever 32-bit system you end up with, you have my blessing. I just want the challenge to be about testing 32-bit hardware, not suffering with spinning Rust. Well, okay.
I like that.
I like that feedback. You know, I had it pointed out to me in Matrix, too, that we could each just try to source our own 32-bit system. I don't know exactly how we would do that. See, I was trying to just find a common one or something, but I feel like we're close. Maybe we should shut up about it and wait, because I think we're so close. I don't want to spoil anything. What?
I've got mine.
Okay. All right. I'm going to double check what I got. Let's see. Shout out to Bear, by the way. He sent me a box of track paper for the dot matrix printer.
What?
No way.
Yeah. Yeah. So we got a box of paper now, and I'm going to get it set up. It's going to be great.
Nev Boosin with 45,895 sats.
I hoard that which your kind covets.
Fun for a space enthusiast less than 20 miles from me. Here's the zip code. And so that's, I guess, 45895, which is a zip code in Ohio, it looks like.
Hello, Ohio.
Near Botkins and St. Mary's.
Oh, yeah. Okay, look at this. He sent us his Nix config.
And also Nix config.
I love this. This is my favorite thing. This is my favorite current trend on the show. Oh, yeah.
Also, Nev suggests that any U.S. state that's not currently called Ohio, specifically Washington, must now be called future Ohio territory.
Is that a declaration of war?
Yeah, I think it might be.
I think we might lose, too. I have to be honest. Oh, he's using MTR and GNU PG. Good boy. He's got Steam installed, and he's SSHing into his box. I'm looking at his Nix config right now. And guess what? He's using Flakes. So what's he doing here with his garbage collection? He's doing garbage collection, and then the dates is a time, 5 o'clock. So he's just doing automatic garbage collection at 5 a.m. every day?
When do you do it?
I do it after like the 30th install or something. Like after the 30th or something. I kind of do it that way. And his channel version is 21.11 in his Nix config. That's great. I could look at those all day long.
Yeah, thanks, Nev.
Rusticasta Versa came in with 40,000 sats, simply saying, I see you, Brent. Let's get it going.
What's going on over here?
I don't know what this is about.
I think you do. It's going to come to you when we're not live. And then you're not going to tell us, and then you'll play like you don't know still. That's what I think is going to happen.
So sneaky.
Isn't that what he's going to do? That's what he's going to do. User Eric the Red comes in with a row of McDucks, 22,222 sats.
Things are looking up for old McDuck.
He says it'd be fun to have a NixOS tips and tricks segment if others are interested. Thanks for the shows. Oh, yeah, we could do that every week pretty easily. But I feel like people would get mad at us. I feel like they would.
They already do.
I want to say I had a pretty... did I mention last week? I can't remember. That I had a neat experience where I bought something and it was essentially a row of McDucks.
That's great, yeah.
For the price. It was like breakfast or something. We'll I don't know if we're going to do a Nix tips section, although I would actually, at a higher level, really like more feedback on if it's too much Nix or not enough. I still think that's just a signal we'd like to get from you guys.
I think maybe this trend of sharing Nix configs could serve as somewhat of a sort of sidestep answer to that, because I am 100% sure. I haven't taken as much look as I want, but I'm collecting these links.
Me too.
I'm sure there are some great things I'll start doing.
I'm looking at them and then grabbing ideas, and I bet a lot of the listeners are too, because we'll put them in the show notes, unless you tell us not to. That is probably almost better than anything we could do on the show in a way, because the work's already done there.
VT52 boosts in with 16,384 cents.
Good customers are as rare as latinum.
That's for sure.
Treasure them.
And this is a follow-up about us talking about our Proxmox hesitation. And VT writes, my issue is with the product's promise. Come learn this cool tool. There's a nice interface. And since it works at a higher level of abstraction than your old tools, you get more done in less time. It's a good pitch, but suffers in that the abstraction is leaky and incomplete. You don't get to ignore the underlying OS. And as JWZ famously said, now you have two problems.
VT, you did it. You nailed it. I knew it. I knew there was a more intelligent way to say what I was trying to communicate, and you did it. Thank you. It is exactly that. You got two problems now, because you have the abstracted layer you got to learn, and then you also, from time to time, still have the actual underlying OS. You don't just get to ignore it. That's it. That's so damn good, VT. So damn good. Thank you for the boost. I really appreciate that.
Marchie boosted in a set of Spaceballs Satoshis.
So the combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the stupidest combination I ever heard in my life.
Sorry to hear you are unwell and about the bad timing, Chris. I hope the El Salvador trip is all fun from here on. P.S. This is a zip code boost. Take the first three numbers, multiply by 9, convert to hex, and then forget all about them and read this zip code. BS16.
Oh, Margie, I love that.
I love that you did it. That's so great. So you brought the map. You're on it, Wes.
Yeah, BS16 is somewhere in Bristol in the UK. Emerson's Green Ore, but I really hope it's this one, and I'm sure it's pronounced differently. But Pucklechurch.
Hello, Pucklechurch. Thank you. Thank you for boosting in, Marchie. That's so great. I had a fantastic. I already missed it. For anybody out there that has a CPAP, you know this experience I'm about to explain. It's probably going to sound kind of gross, but so a CPAP, when you put it on, you don't realize it, but it has the smell of whatever place you're at. And if you're just at that place all the time, that's what the place smells like, and you don't even notice it. But when you travel with your CPAP and then you put it on again at the next place, it smells like the previous place. Sure. And it's the weirdest visceral memory, right? So last night, I wake up in San Salvador at 4 a.m. We got in around 8 p.m. and I went to bed around midnight, which would be like 3 a.m. San Salvador time. So it was a long day, and I was ready to just pass out. But I put the old CPAP on, fired it up, and I got blasted with the Airbnb. And I was like, I was back in San Salvador in the Airbnb, and I just laid there for a while. Like, oh yeah, like this is great. It was a great experience, and it made me miss it. I was nostalgic for it. I would love to go back. I don't know about the process of getting there. I sure do hate that, but it was a really enjoyable experience. I'll probably always remember it fondly, even though I got so sick.
How was it finding some breathing water?
So that's harder, although you can order a lot of things from the pharmacy and just have them brought to you by courier. Like Hadia, she bought insulin while we were there. She didn't really need it, but it's the same brand. It's the same exact product, but it's $80 versus $600 here in the States. And they'll deliver it to you. So she's like, well, let's see if we can get you some distilled water. Well, no grocery store has distilled water. And the only place that has distilled water is the pharmacy. So we ordered it from the pharmacy, but it comes in an IV bag. And like, you don't just like pop the bottom of the IV bag off and just start filling. Like it doesn't work like that. So we had to like slice it open and then pour it into another bottle, and then I used that. But it was pretty funny. It's like a lot of packaging for just a little bit of water too. I guess there's not a lot of CPAPs down there. Is it me?
I think so.
Okay. Darvlin comes in with 3,000 sats. Well, of course the International Space Station runs Debian and needs an OS that just works and doesn't get in the way of important work. So thank you for coming in with the answer. We had a few other people write in too that, to answer last week's question, the International Space Station does indeed run Debian. And that's pretty, I think that makes a lot of sense. Although, are they running Scientific Linux and CentOS and RHEL down on the ground and Debian up in space?
Someone better tell them about Nix. Dexbot comes in with 2,000 sats. Alert! Alert! Tuxies.party seems to have lapsed. It just goes to a parked domain page for me.
This was the boost that alerted me to this. Thank you so much, Dexbot. I was out and about, and I pulled up the old boost dashboard just to check on things and saw this. And I guess we must have registered a couple of years around this time. And of course, if it's going to expire,
that's when
it's when it's going to expire is when I'm in San Salvador and I'm not really paying attention to anything. And the show's gone out late that week already as it is. So it's like we're already just sort of out of sorts. So of course, that's when it's going to do it. So I popped on there real quick, did the old renew.
Seems to be working now.
Yeah. Professional operation.
Sultros came in with 5,000 sats. Hey, I noticed Chris is obsessed with using idioms for everything, so I wrote him this. Chris, a Linux user through and through, likes to kick the tires of any new distro, ensuring it's not all hat and no cattle before he goes whole hog and integrates it into his daily grind.
Chef's kiss. That is beautiful. That is. Yeah, there's an old bit of an old philosophy in broadcast about tell him what you tell him and then bring it home for him, right? Make a sandwich. I think it's a golden rule. Sam Squatch comes in with 10,000 sats using Cast-O-Matic. What problem does Flake solve? I've just been using regular configs. They're all short and they seem simpler so far. Also, take care of your health, Chris. Hope you're doing okay. Thank you, Sam Squanch. Wes, why the hell do I need flakes?
I mean, if you're just using NixOS and you're happy with the regular configs, there's probably no reason that you strictly need it. Flakes provide a more standardized schema, so you have inputs and outputs, which makes reusability and interoperability a much better story. So if you're trying to use stuff outside of Nix packages or building your own things, I think Flakes add a lot.
Would this be a fair, simpler way to say it? Is you could kind of make your own packages in a way. Like say you had something on GitHub, you could pull that in using a Flake and you could just have it sort of quote unquote packaged for yourself. You don't have to have some maintainer putting it in the Nix repo.
Yeah. And it allows a lot of workflows like that in a much more flexible way than you get with the sort of standard environment. Additionally, depending on how you feel about channels, or if you need finer grained control of some versions, or you want to like call some things out and like freeze those or jump them ahead, Flakes can also make that a little bit easier, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point.
All I really heard Wes say just there was if you want your Nix hipster badge, then Flakes is the way to go.
Sure is.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
Kieran Bug comes in with 4,686 sats. 686. Starts with a question. What is Podman?
It is a alternative to Docker that you might say is almost even more native to Linux in a sense. And I think one of the probably standout features is that when a lot of people are running Docker as root, Podman came along and offered an option that didn't require you to run it as root to get some of that functionality.
Didn't have to run as root. You didn't have to have this daemon running in the background all the time. You can just kind of, lightweight containers.
I believe Red Hat still remains the predominant sponsor and contributor to Podman as well.
And then a second bit of this boost. Funny how I actually got distressed almost when the episode didn't show up as soon as I am used to.
I guess that means we're doing something right.
Yeah, thanks. That's appreciated.
Zach Attack boosts in with 6,543 sats. I might have mistyped. I'm using Virt Manager for my dual monitor Windows VM, which really, really helps when I have to do work. As for virtual machine, I mostly use it to run Kali Linux to do network assessments. Easy to set up, easy to get going.
Well, that's great to know. Virt Manager is even a better option than having to use VBox. I also used to use a little bit of Virt Manager on my Linux desktop and laptops to do network assessments. I think it was we didn't call it Kali back then. I forget. It wasn't BlackRock Linux, was it?
Yeah, what was it?
Somebody boost in and remind me what it was. Boise79 comes in with 9,566 sats using the Fountain app. He says, here's a zip code boost, multiply it by 5, and then add 4. When I do this is where I do most of my Linux work. Oh, what do you mean? Are you a contractor? Are you like a contract Linux guy? What are you doing, boy? Are you going around moving? Setting up Linux? What are you doing? Are you businesses?
Keep reading. It might be in there.
Okay, right. It says, I currently use 2 clusters of Proxmox servers to Pixie boot Clonezilla and store images with CephFS.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's nice. I was disappointed about your experience with Proxmox, but I understand your point of simplicity and your setup. Also, I love the Windows episode. In Linux, I would like to see PowerShell scripting to work with Active Directory in Linux for adding modifications of user accounts and whatnot. Keep up the good work, guys. Well, thank you, boys. That's a fantastic boost. I am really envious of your setup. I think if I was using Proxmox in like a serious capacity of providing services for clients or for a business, I think that's a really nice setup, and I would be a lot more serious about investing in learning Proxmox.
Yeah, it's just not a use case right now. Oh, yeah. We've got a zip code here in a fun little town. Looks like it's 47834, if I'm doing the math right, of multiply by 5 and add 4. And that looks to be a zip code near Brazil, Indiana.
Hello, Brazil, Indiana. Thank you for boosting in, Boise. Appreciate that.
I guess that means it's me. No,
I think it's me. Magnolia Mayhem boosts in with 18,023 cents. Starts with a little joke of Mayhem saying, "You'll stay safe in El Salvador?" ? And then Chris ejects his stomach lining. This is what I get for suggesting things.
Yeah, it's your fault.
And speaking of bad suggestions, friendly reminder that I have a dual CPU rack mount that I'm pretty sure is 32-bit and I'm doing nothing with. A weird rich guy gave it to me when he found out I was going to college for IT, but I'm working 2 different jobs right now, so it's just sitting in my closet. I'd love to see it go to some good use. I also have an old single-core 32-bit netbook that someone gave me for a deployment back in 2013 that I haven't touched since.
Okay, so it is a server. That would work as kind of like if we did a time-shared system.
Yeah, so the tricky bit is how do we get it? Shipping the netbook wouldn't be too hard, but the biggin' might be a challenge.
Oh, I bet it's big.
If there's enough community capacity, I do think I have an idea, though.
Okay.
My bad idea is doing a kind of Pony Express, where JB listeners drive part of the way across the U.S., handing it off as it makes its way northwest. As crazy as the idea is, enough interest might make it happen. Feasibility aside, doing a distributed travel log would be a really cool content. We could document the travel and handovers from person to person. I could personally get as far north and west as Arkansas or Louisiana, so like 5% of the way there. If there's anybody who could take over from there, hit me up in Matrix. I'd love to make this happen if the guys want this whole thing.
That'd be pretty great. And I wonder, maybe like we could go, like we'd have to take
Go
Jukes,
down
right?
to, right?
Make it, part of the way. Oh my God. All right, let's make it happen then. I would love to do a big server where because I'd love it to be the same hardware.
So we'd all have the same.
Yeah, because my concern is that it's going to be a lot of problem solving for edge cases with each individual piece of hardware before we get to the Linuxing. Because they're all going to be old, weird pieces of hardware.
Yeah, true.
I know, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
Init 6 came in with 4,444 sats. Is that like a new kind of duck or something?
Could be like a row of Mick ducks.
Quacka wacka, it's a treasure. Yippee!
I did find like a code guide for all the boosts. I just have to link it again.
Maybe we can integrate it into our little script.
Oh.
And it says, I really get your talk about Bitcoin and sats now as my bank started blocking some of the services like MoonPay and for some reason Pusha 3D, even though I definitely have money. Anyway, any tips on where to start getting more into sats and where to buy as a European? If someone has tips, but it's not relevant to the show, I'd be happy to receive them as a DM in Init 6 and Matrix.
So I did follow up with a nit on Matrix, and I was just looking now. He's in the Bitcoin and altcoins discussion room, chatting with some fellow Europeans. So I think he's getting further answers. But we landed on HODL HODL, which is a KYC service that you can do over there, do peer-to-peer transfers. And I think that's probably a good way for him to go. But I'm always interested if there's some exchanges people love that they feel safe, even if they do have KYC. I'd like to know about them. Now, I have wait. Okay. Oh, that was okay. Anything else we need to just double check?
Yeah, I think the rest are under the cutoff.
Yep.
That top thanks boost is pretty fun.
Yeah, it's very self-congratulatory, though, so I'll just leave it. But thank you, Tater, if you're listening. Really appreciate that. All right. Thank you, everybody who boosted in this week. We stacked 300,135 sats across 19 boosters. Not bad at all, considering it's been like 3 days since we recorded the last episode.
Yeah, wow.
So I very much am thankful, everybody. Thank you for supporting the show. If you'd like to boost in and get your message read on the show, we do a 2,000 sat cutoff, although we welcome all the boosts and we do read all of them and save them in each week's doc. You can get a new podcast app at podcastapps.com. And then you top those apps off with some sats and you can boost in. Or if you want to keep your current podcast app and you'd like to boost them from the website, just getalby.com, and then you can boost from like the podcast index, or Fountain has a way to boost and Podverse has a way to boost from the web. We'll put links to that in the show notes. That's a great way to support each individual production because this is a value for value show. So if you got some value out of our conversation earlier, or made you think about something, or even got you a little fired up and you just want to keep that kind of thing around, please consider supporting it with a boost or by becoming a member at unpluggedcore.com. We don't really know what the situation looks like next year, but we want to keep the show around, and we always want the audience to be the largest customer. And so if you get something from the show, give a little something back. You can do that with treasure, time, or talent, whichever works best for you. That's just what we ask. And we thank everybody who does support the show each and every week, right here, right now. This is your moment that we're thinking about you. Also, shout out to our SAT streamers who stream while they listen. We really do appreciate that, too. And we see you. It's one of my favorite things to see coming in on that dashboard. Bradley had a great idea for a pick this week. I don't know if it's so much a piece of software, but maybe a lifestyle.
Well, I like that. This is one that I've been thinking about sharing for a while because I don't think it gets much attention. And I also tried it a year ago and had a very bad time with it, but I think now is the time. So I want to bring attention to KD's Plasma activities. I've been using them for about 6 months now, I think. And if you don't know what they are, I don't blame you because they're very well hidden in Plasma's interface. They're kind of like virtual desktops, but to a whole other level. So you could see them as almost like a superset of virtual desktops. So with activities, you change your entire context. and I'll explain that a little bit, but I want to find out, have either of you played with this at any point? Wes, Chris?
Yeah, actually, way back in the day, I had Chris set me up a Plasma desktop when we got our workstation laptops from Linux Academy, and Activities was one of the first things he showed me, and I've been using them. I don't like have I think I only have 2, maybe 3 set up, but they're not like a critical part of the workflow, but there's some I definitely appreciate in Plasma.
I think I've diminished my use of them over time, but I used to have like a recording activity and then like everything else.
That makes sense, yeah.
That kind of stuff. And I found that to be pretty useful because it's not just like a few small changes. It feels like an almost entirely different Plasma environment. Mm-hmm. You can really make it different for each activity.
And as Brent was saying, I mean, you kind of get, each activity has its own set of virtual desktops. So it's like you're not giving up on stuff. You just get a whole new environment.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I
don't know why I kind of stopped using it. It seems really useful, but it might just be the complexity and it's not necessary for what I need to do.
You know what? The 2 functions I've really appreciated, and the reason I've stuck with them is, number 1, I have an activity for like my JB stuff, which I mostly use when we're recording. And the reason for that is I have set that activity to never go to sleep and to leave the screens on at all times.
Nice.
Because Chris, I don't know if you've been on location and you're recording a show and, you've been talking for a while and then the monitor goes to sleep because I don't know. That is the most frightening experience ever. So I specifically have this activity avoid that for me.
That's a great idea. Yeah, you can do individual power settings, and screen sleep, locking or not locking.
Yeah, another feature I have appreciated is having various launchers, having various app icons in the panel. So for each activity, I can have different ones. So for instance, you might find that useful. I do for like when I'm at work, which I'm not really physically at work, but with activities, I can like change my virtual context and have the links to applications that I need only in that context, which for me has been actually quite helpful from a life-work balance standpoint. I have accomplished that in the past by having like different computers in different rooms of my apartment or whatever, but this is just a virtual way of doing it, which I've quite appreciated actually. I would say if you're looking into activities, there's not much documentation at all. A lot of the articles written about activities are like 10 plus years old. Activities first showed up in KD4 and I mean, they're still around. And from what I can tell, I had a bad experience a year ago and now I'm having a better experience. So there's still there must be some work going on with it. But I did link to a video from our friend Nico, who just kind of runs you through what activities can do and how they can be helpful. So if you feel like trying it, I feel like you might just have a good time. So give it a try.
I appreciate the reminder to give it a go again, because I can't honestly tell you why I haven't been using it recently. And this machine here is a great Plasma system. I'm not switching from Plasma anytime soon on this computer, so I might as well embrace that kind of stuff. Man, I could even have activities for different shows if I really thought about it.
It's nice too. I like the feeling. I mean, you get this with virtual desktops, but because of the integration with the other settings, it sort of feels like what you can do a subset with virtual desktops, but activities is sort of the abstraction that was meant to be for this. And I like the freedom of just, it really feels like you can leave stuff in that other activity and as long as it's not eating all your CPU or whatever, but pop over, you can do work. And then at the end of the day, you've still got like the articles you wanted to read from before. I know there's 1,000 ways to sync and save those, but just having it left right there.
Yeah. It's like your state remains.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly it. All right, guys, you talked me into it.
The real key for me to make it stick was I did some key bindings for each activity. Oh. So if I do Super 1, it's like just general. If I do Super 2, then that brings me to my JB, like always on environment. So I have, 4 activities set up, one for drumming, one for work stuff. And that was the real key, because switching between them if you need to is super easy.
What's he going to put in that activity 5 though?
We don't want to know. There's some things we don't. I feel like the future for Plasma is really bright. I'm not only excited about Plasma 6, but I'm still kind of excited about 5.27. 8's a really great release. 9 I'm sure will be. It's just at a great spot. They started this new endeavor when they got 5 to a really, really solid space. And if you ended up on 5.27 for the next couple of years, I think you'd be doing just fine. And it's going to be a great option going forward. I'd like to know, though, maybe this is something you could boost in. What motivates you to try out a new desktop environment? If you've been a Gnome user for a while, what would motivate you to try Plasma? Does it actually require some kind of disaster, or is it something else? What motivates you to try it? Let me know. Now, next week, we're going to be fiddling with our live time. I presume we'll be live. It's not 100% guaranteed, but we're going to be recording a little early to accommodate Editor Drew. We'll probably be doing that Friday or Saturday. We just haven't quite nailed it down yet. So when we do know if we are going to be live, we'll put it at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. So that way you can join us. You can hang out in that virtual lug, which is a great way to get a low latency Opus stream of the show, but also chime in, share your thoughts, hang out with us in the before and afters.
Help us build the show.
And I'm going to give one more plug to the members version, because when you become a member at unpluggedcore.com, you get the bootleg version of the show if you like. And there's some great stories, especially when one of us is traveling. Like, you'll always hear some of the real highlights in the members version. It's just kind of stuff that maybe we don't put in the show for runtime and to keep the show really focused on the Linux stuff. But there's some really good stuff in the members version of the show. And if you want that, a little extra shows, sometimes double the show, unpluggedcore.com. That really also means a lot to us. That is a great way for us to project ongoing what our run will be. Thank you, everybody, though, who takes time to listen, share the show. We really appreciate you tuning in. Even if we're not live at our regular time, I guarantee you we'll be in that RSS feed back at the regular time, as you expect. I apologize about the delay.
See you next week. Same bat time, same bat station.
And, of course, links to what we talked about today are at linuxunplugged/536. You can head on over to jupiterbroadcasting.com. There's a self-hosted over there with an interview from Paulus from the Home Assistant project. By the way, Home Assistant #2 open source project on GitHub again. So you can find that over on self-hosted. Coder Radio is killing it. And of course, that's every week at jupiterbroadcasting.com as well. I'll leave it there, though. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you right back here next Tuesday, as in Sunday.
Poof, magic. All right, so then WireGuard. WireGuard. WireGuard.
All right, I'll stop. Thank you, Drew.
So I have a suggestion for the European market for cryptos.
Yeah, I thought you might.
Yeah, so I'm using a debit credit card company called Skrill. SKRILL.
Okay, I know I've asked you before. SKI, what was it?
SKRILL.
SKRILL. Okay.
Do they make music?
They used to.
Yeah, they do this.
No. That is Skrill on the new Twitter.
Right.
Yeah, that's funny.
Do you have a whale of a time over there?
But the interesting thing what they do, so they're a debit card company first. So you already have your KYC, and they implemented the crypto on top of it. So also when you put money in, they have if you want to pay with your debit card, you can transfer your crypto to your debit card and then pay with it with your debit card. And let me see, card transfer. As transfer options, you can top it up with European options. For example, I can use the just a bank transfer, add another credit or debit card. I can even use my debit card on ATM machines. When I'm going on holiday, I'm paying with money that I earned by just trading crypto coin.
Okay. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. International money transfer, withdrawal from your crypto wallet, so up and down from an existing external crypto wallet, you can top it up, request money with money transfer from others, and there are a lot of altcoins also on there, but the interesting thing is it monitors when you bought something and tells you how much profit you have made already at that point. So you don't have to do any administration to know. I knew like 3 days ago that I had 35% profit. So I was like, okay, I'm taking in my profit.
That is slick. Thank you for the recommendation. We do have the titles ready to vote. Plasma Power-Ups is pretty good, Wes. I'm liking that.
Should probably double check. It's a simple enough one we could have used it or something. But.
Yeah. Nix
like
your troubles away.
Nix
El Nixador. 32 bits enough for anybody.
We should save that one for when we actually do.
Yes. Smooth Plasma 6 transitions. Not bad at all.
You know, I want to know if anyone out there has any Titanium hardware so we can try a Titanium challenge
Woo!
before it leaves the kernel.
That's right. We do need to do that. We should do a going away party for Titanium. Save that one away, Wes.
I like
I'm down.
that. Okay.
I'm down. Maybe make a server out of it or something.
Oh, that's something that I remembered. Newer kernels don't often or sometimes don't run on the bit32 because of missing CPU instruction sets.
Yeah. I'm actually concerned that we'll spend a lot of time just getting whatever hardware we pick working before we actually get a chance to try Linux. But that's the idiotic thing we're choosing to do, so...
Who suggested this, anyway?
Well, one thing that I noticed with...
Yeah, for sure.
One thing that I noticed with my 32-bit hardware, I have a AMD Opteron, I think, or even what's the other AMD old thingy?
Athlon?
Athlon, that's it. And where it was missing the SSE2 instruction set. So I couldn't run any newer than 4.12 or something, I think.
So are you having any issues finding hardware for the 32-bit challenge?
Well, the tricky thing would be finding hardware for all of us to use. That's kind of been the problem. I don't know. I haven't really sat down since before El Salvador to look, so I might have a solution that's just not immediately obvious.
Yeah, we probably need to have a little powwow and sort through like, well, how are we going to approach it? What's the...
Yeah, we just now that we're actually, I think, getting serious about it. Now that I'm back, we need to actually plan. Because
I may have some 32-bit stuff kicking around. If
okay.
You end up needing hardware.
I don't know, man. You can't even get your Matrix chat working. So what?
Hey, that's not me. That's you guys. I'm on matrix.org.
Yeah,
and I found out recently that I'm not the only ones having issues talking to you, Chris.
Oh yeah, who else?
There's some other people that I was talking with that I won't name for privacy reasons.
Maybe this is a good problem.
Having issues talking
Maybe this isn't the problem I want.
Installed a extension that blocks messages.
This is perhaps the benefit of hosting your own server. Now that I'm thinking about this. Great.
So no, there is something goofed with the JV server, basically.
Yep, throw the whole thing out, Wes. Right. Start over. All right, we got to get serious about our title real quick.
Just burn it down, right?
Well, what?
Just burn down the server?
Oh, well, we could. I mean, and just build it again.
Yeah, we'll have to break into Linode's data center.
We'd have
that's
to,
tricky.
if we rebuild it, we'd build it on Nix too. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's going to happen.
For sure.
That's going to happen regardless.
Yeah.
Have you been following Noah's transition from DO over to hardware?
I've caught bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
If you have any specific callouts,
the Matrix server has been moved and it's way, way better.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Sudden
There's a great message in the chat room right now.
Okay, what is it?
It's from Promiscunix, which is a great name, saying, "Hey, it's not a big deal to get Nix running on 32-bit hardware." By the way,
Ew.
I think Plasma Power-Ups is the one to beat.
Yeah, That Wes, he's hard to.
You're on today, Wes.
All right.
You were on it. And we haven't used it, right? You dubbed?
Check that right now.
Okay.
So my suggestion, I use this thing called Revolut. I see that it uses it. I think that like in the U.S. they don't do the crypto thing, or even like Bitcoin, because like I've asked them and they just kind of give me this really vague like, hey, we don't deal with crypto in the United States. They just kind of skirt around it. They say, yeah, you can. There's other ways, but I think maybe across the pond they kind of, help with that more. I don't know their situation in the U.S., but I just know that I was like, oh, that's fine, because, at least I can save a bit of fiat fund coupons in the old Revolut account.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Revolut, I think, started, I think maybe in the UK, but I know it started outside the States. Mm-hmm. And then, so I don't think we have all the functionality.
Okay, we're good on plasma power-ups.
Okay, then I think we got our wiener.
Bing, bing, bing. I'll vote for it really quick, so I, side with the winner.
Yeah, which is your own title.
Is there a maximum,
totally corrupt.
Is there a maximum sats that you would ever want somebody to boost in? Because I know there's a limit on liquidity and all that stuff.
Yeah, it would be we've never tested the upper limit, but I would imagine over
3 Bitcoin.
No, no, I would bet you, 2 million and up would probably start to get pretty hard. We have about almost 15 million in total liquidity inbound. So the issue is though there's not any one channel, so that whatever client would have to support splitting it up, which is a feature, but you'd have to. Not all clients support splitting it up across multiple channels. So I would expect because of that around 2 million sats. I mean, I have a couple channels that are 5 million sats individually, but the chances are that they wouldn't hit that route. So I would imagine around 2 million-ish would start to have a problem. And at that point, you could just do an on-chain transaction, I suppose, but then it wouldn't show up as a boost.
Right. And if you're willing, it might be better for us to just split it out anyway, just as, it's more interactions with the booster. If you've got more stuff to boost to us. Anyway.
That's true. Yeah, the nice thing about it being a boost versus an on-chain too is the boost has the splits. So yeah, I would love to be solving that problem one day. We'll see. We'll see, because I think, I don't know. I don't know what the psychology is if Bitcoin's at $70,000. I don't know what the psychology becomes with the boost. We'll see. It's part of the experiment. We knew that would be a part. We've been doing the bear market.
Way, really. Yeah, exactly.
Right. We've been doing the bear market experiment for a bit, which I think has been great if you think about it for adoption. If we're trying something, doing it while sats are cheap is probably the time to do it. On-chain fees are low. So it's kind of been, in terms of, price, it's been low, but it's maybe the good time to kind of experiment with this, not necessarily when it's at 70.
Right. But it was after the previous boom, so onboarding is easier.
Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more technology like the Cash App and Strike, and Lightning itself really gets a lot more development when the on-chain fees go up, because that's when all of a sudden everybody becomes concerned again about a layer 2. And when the on-chain fees are really low, there's just not quite the same pressure to have a layer 2. So you'll also see if Bitcoin goes into a bull market, you'll see that the development on Lightning will also pick up.
You were talking last episode, or maybe it was in the members version, but just about paying for stuff with Lightning on your trip.
Mm-hmm.
And running giraffing and not having the tap to pay, Lightning's so good, at least in most of the times I ever use it.
Yeah.
I would be so happy to just use that as the method to transfer stuff at the store.
And the Zeus app, which is what I use, is a QR. It's you just as you're moving the phone over the QR code, it's still blurred, it scans it.
Perfect.
So it's there's not that awkward, let me get it just right. It gets it instantly.
Yeah.
Whatever they did for that QR scanning nails it. And Lightning is faster than a credit card transaction. So the whole process, if you're at a place that knows what you're doing, is really smooth, because by the time she's got me all checked out, I've got the Zeus app loaded with the QR code scanner ready to go. It comes up on the screen, boom, done. It's as soon as it's scanned, the transaction's done.
Yeah.
But the mind job is that's from my node over Tailscale.
Yeah. That's so cool.
I didn't even use the public internet. It was from my node, and then it published it on the public internet from the Bitcoin network. I mean, it's just incredible. On my Graphene OS device.
Yeah, that's cool. That's freaking cool.
Just so neat. So
that speaks a lot to what you were saying about having to celebrate open source software from various angles, right? Like the way that you can do that is so freeing in the ways that open source software and free software started out trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Amazing.
The whole stack. So cool. So cool. And my node's back here in Washington.
Yeah, right.
And I'm in El Salvador. And it all happens faster than a credit card.
Do you think that retailers have a bit of an aversion to yet one more way for people to pay, especially because I've watched a lot of retailers how the tap to pay stuff just
aggravated them.
A pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think that may be
Yeah.
one reason why they're like, yeah, no, we don't need one more way for people to pay?
To a degree, although the phone payment, like the foot's already in the door. So like at Adopting Bitcoin, a merchant announced 40,000 new locations they're going to be deploying their point of sales. And that, the way that works, it's like you get your balance and your option is paying cash, and they just also at the same time simultaneously display a QR code. And if you want to do that, you just scan it and then it's paid. So that's kind of, I think integration makes the difference there, but
probably balance too to what's the hassle, what's the integration level, and
right.
What amount of potential sales do you think you're actually missing
and they're going from old school cash register that you chunk, ka-ching, and you put cash into to a point of sales device, right? So like where like the Western point of sale merchants, point of sales devices, like they've had to go through all these crappy transitions with the pin and the chip, and then the crappy wireless tap to pay that nobody knows how to use, which is I'm like always nervous. I'm always like looking at the device, like did they put a little NFC symbol somewhere to give me a hint where the hell I should roughly shove my phone, right? It's still not smooth. So I can understand. It's going to be frustrating for them, I think. But the thing that, because I have never been there, and so I didn't appreciate this until I could be there, there is a massive logistical problem in a cash economy. They actually have to move the cash.
Totally, yeah.
And like if you are, say, a grocery store chain, and you have to move cash between your franchises, you're literally putting cash in a truck and driving it.
Yeah, right. This is like the microcosm of what the cannabis businesses in Washington have to deal with.
And you can imagine, like, El Salvador, there's some crime sometimes.
Right.
And so for them to be able to move funds around using sats, and the way the Blink wallet works, and I'm not going to get, that's really complicated, but they have what they call a stable sat. So they can basically, by playing the back end of the market, they can peg to the dollar. And so you can go in on sats and peg the value to the dollar. And so the businesses use that. And so that's now how they're starting to move the money between the branches with this new point of sale system.
Interesting.
So that's why they wanted to implement it.
Mm-hmm.
That was their motivation, is because they didn't want trucks with cash anymore. I hadn't even thought about that problem.
Wow. Yeah. Fascinating.
And I can't imagine they're really super high-end trucks, because those like armored trucks wouldn't even fit on the roads of El Salvador.
Right.
So they're just trucks, like, a Toyota. They're a Toyota. A lot of Toyotas over there, a lot of Hiluxes.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least everywhere I've worked in retail, they basically farm out cash management to some sort of armored car division.
Yeah. A lot of security, so I'm sure they do it. I mean, they have to, but I think the businesses would like to get away from that game. I couldn't even imagine.
Do you think in the U.S. the cannabis industry might embrace sats and that might more normalize it?
No,
because they're barred from standard banking.
No, there was a minute when Washington legalized it early on that there was a sats-based backend that was basically doing what I was just talking about, but that company went out of biz, probably during one of the cycles. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think they don't want to do anything, anything kind of controversial or anything.
They're already sort of out of the mainstream worried about.
Well, there are some stories about the Pennsylvania State Police, where especially with the marijuana shops moving their cash, and the state police stopping those trucks, finding huge amounts of cash, seizing it, handing it over to the FBI, getting their kickback, and when the companies sue the police, they say, "We don't have your money. You have to go to federal."
Boy, that stinks.
It sure does.
Yeah, in 2017, they already seized $600,000 in cash at that point.
Woo!
And they keep popping up in the news because what they're doing is, in really heavy quotes, legal.
Yeah. That's gross.
Promiscuous Nix has another question for us.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
How big of a boost will it take for Brent to get us a working Nix flake for Nextcloud with Postgres? One of the things they've been meaning to get going, but have not got around to it yet.
I think we'll have to
So
experiment.
I need to check
find
with
out.
my advisors, guys.
Yeah, because you're going to outsource that to Wes, is what you're saying.
Likely.
I tried. Good luck.
Hey, I'll take the credit. He doesn't have to.
Rest in peace, Wes.
Yeah, what else? So if we had our list of things we want Wes to flake for us, Nextcloud and Postgres would be on there.
Yeah.
I think Matrix would be on there. Stable Diffusion and Llama 2 I'd be on my list. What else? I think we can think of a lot more things, guys.
Maybe we should need a list. We can just bat them out.
Just as a note, we're gonna figure out, but we're not exactly sure when we're doing this show. Do you guys have a strong preference already? Is it easy to decide? Is Saturday just simply easier for both of you? Is Friday better?
I think I could do either.
Yeah, I'm flex.
Okay, well that doesn't help. Do you have a preference?
You're welcome.
If you think about coming up to the studio, might be Saturday easier.
Yeah, maybe slightly.
Okay, then let's do Saturday. All right. Do you want to do it at noon or do you want to do it in the evening?
Noon's fine.
Okay, let's do it at noon.
More normal?
Yeah, then we'll have the energy.
Mm,
we'll have the
true.
energy. So let's
Yeah.
do it at noon. All right.
Okay, great.
So instead of Sunday, we're going to do it at Saturday.
That sounds
We just figured it out.
Are you inviting people to join us?
Yeah,
Is that what you're
I
doing?
think so. Yeah. So that way we can have, because we just missed them. I don't want to do it again.
Yeah, totally.
And since it's last minute. So Mumble Room, if you're available on Saturday, we're going to do it one day earlier next week for editor Drew, so he has a little extra time in his schedule next week.
Would that be the same time slot?
Yep. Same bat time, just a different bat day.
That could work. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right. We got a boost during the show from TAC.
Wow.
He says, so Llama CPP has a flake, so you can add it to your config with it specified using either CUDA, OpenCL, or ROCM, which is still broken, he says. Okay, he says you can use the 7 billion parameter one, which is great. And there's a plugin called Continue Dev, which has integration for VS Code and IntelliJ.
Great. Oh, we'll have to try that. Let's get it set up.
Jeff also sent in a boost during the show, 50,000 sats, saying a little post-trip refill. Hope those tacos were good.
Oh.
It was one of the best meals I had, actually. I finally got to go out and have it after not being able to eat. We went out to a really nice place, and I had chicken tacos. Those were great.
Delicious.
They were great.
They've got great rice water down there, though, I hear, right?
That's what I mostly ate, yeah.
Well, like horchata rice water, with a little bit of a...
No,
of course not.
No.
Been playing a bit more with that shield.
Oh, yeah?
Fun.
Yeah, it's interesting with Lineage. I mean, they don't just give you like a standard Lineage OS that you would expect on a phone. It still runs the weird Android TV like NVIDIA.
Well, that's what you would want, wouldn't you, kind of, for a TV box?
I mean, I wasn't planning on using it for that. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Well, plus, like, that remote wasn't the right one or just doesn't work right or something.
Damn.
So, using like a regular keyboard mouse remote would have worked better with a regular UI, because it's really strange. Sometimes it expects a mouse cursor, and sometimes it expects a back button, or it's just like these, there's all these little weird things. It's just super strange. So, with only 2 USB ports, it's like you got to really choose the right input device to plug into this thing. But yeah, got Lineage on there. Kodi runs fabulously. Got my network shares going. 1080p, no problem. I don't have anything bigger than that.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest 11 gigabyte files that I have, they ran perfectly fine. Netflix app ran, although now I'm getting an error code, but I think it's just a setting, like CEC TV BS. And a couple of games ran fine. So yeah, it's older Android, so it's hard to get certain apps going, but
oh yeah, like what?
Usable.
How old are we talking?
Lineage 17. I don't remember what version that is.
Are we all looking?
We're looking. Who's going to win?
Quick now.
I've got latency, guys.
It looks like the current version is 27.
Ooh. Oh, that stings.
Yeah, it's old. It's quite old.
Okay.
Yeah. Android Pie. So whatever is after Pi, I think that was 6 or 8. No, maybe 8. Yeah.
That's not great. Does it prevent anything from installing, or will stuff still install?
Things still install, but certain things don't work. One of the biggest issues I had were like storage permissions. So certain apps that need certain storage permissions, especially newer ones that use the new storage APIs, they have issues.
Okay.
And I just couldn't. Sometimes it would work fine. It would just be like, oh, okay, whatever, and it would just fall back and it would work. But other times, I couldn't get anything to run, like the Dolphin emulator. I'm like, this is a powerful piece of hardware. Let's see if I can get a GameCube game to run. And I just couldn't get the emulator to open anything. It just wouldn't open any file at all because it would just crash every time. But Explorer File Manager, my favorite, runs great. Other file managers run fine. Most things run fine. I think the biggest tip and trick that I had was, again, good old beautiful KDE Connect. I was just able to shoot APKs from my phone straight to it and install them.
That is so handy so many times, so often.
Yeah, or from my desktop or, whatever. But yeah, it's cool. And once I kind of worked around the stupid... So the other thing, too, is you can't put a new home screen on there. Like, I put Nova on there, my favorite. And you can go to it. You can launch it. But the home button, I've got a little media Android little, remote thing that I've had, and it's got a home button on there, but it just keeps launching the stupid NVIDIA one. It won't default. So you can't change the default at all, which is annoying. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But I kind of figured that out, and now that I got Kodi on there and Netflix on there, it's like, well, it's really all I need, those two things.
I could see using something like that hooked up to like a TV in some places, like a Home Assistant dashboard device.
Oh, yeah.
That is kind of what I was thinking exactly. And that's why I wanted a standard home screen. Just, I don't know, so I can get through what I wanted on. But
could you try putting fully kiosk on that thing?
I could try it. Yeah, give it a shot. It should work fine. It doesn't really need any special storage permissions. And Sunshine Moonlight.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Perfectly fine.
Oh, nice.
I was on Hardwire, Ethernet, and man, the latency using that was no. Gosh, I mean, I took a slow-mo of the old monitor I was using and my 240 hertz monitor, and I'm pretty sure the latency was just because of the old monitor, like really unnoticeable.
That is so slick. Okay.
Yeah. So
all right.
That was good.
So Lineage 17 is not so bad if that stuff's working.
Yeah.
You can make that work.
The Shield's running Android 5, so it's newer than that.
There you go.
Because it's a 2017 Shield, so.
Okay.
Thank you for the update.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for the commercial streams to ride off into the sunset. We got one more message for our members, but we're bringing the commercial streams to an end right here. Thank you if you've been watching on the YouTubes or the Twitch. You can always become a member and get the full version. It's a great way to support the show, too.
Or try Jupiter.tube if you want to watch it on open source.
That's right. Free software platform for you. And you can stream it to up here. Thanks for joining us. See you next time. Coder on Tuesday this week.
Tuesday!